Hi everybody, hope you're okay, hope you're sitting comfortably. So if you're ready, let's go! Yes, the show's about to start. Well, not really a show, more something that we hope, will help you understand the next poem in the Power and Conflict anthology we're looking at. This time, it's Poppies by Jane Weir. Right, pens, pencils, brain might come in handy. Paper, anything else you need to write with. Are you ready? The answer is yes. It's time for the Do Now. In the table, you should be able to see, I hope, some descriptions of the poems that you've looked at so far and the names of the poems. Your task, very simple, can you match the poem to its description or the description to the poem, whichever way you want to look at it. Before we move on to reading the whole poem, let's just have a look at the title, Poppies. Have a think about the two questions on this slide. Take a few moments before moving on to look at them. Maybe jot down your thoughts. Just how do poppies link to the war? Why, when we see pictures of poppies, do we think of war? Before we actually look at the poem itself, let's have a look at the life of Jane Weir, the poet, as there are some aspects of her life that are reflected in her writing. So, Jane Weir, this is your life. Well, when I say this is your life, it isn't really, because all we need to know are the parts of her life that influenced the way that she wrote. She was born in 1963 and grew up in Italy and England. She lived in Northern Ireland during the troubles that took place there and was a textile designer and a poet. The textile designer is quite relevant, as throughout Poppies, as we look at it, you'll see there are many images which relate to textiles, and that's where they came from. A really good quote about her from a critic is, "The principal motive is language itself, its mutability in representing both the abstract and the real." Some of Jane Weir's poems have deep meanings, others are plain for everybody to see. I'll leave it to you to decide which Poppies actually is. Some of the poems you've already looked at were written by the very soldiers who were fighting in World War One, so are giving first-hand experiences of what life was like in the trenches. Poets such as Wilfred Owen, Rupert Brooke and Siegfried Sassoon wrote in this way. But there are others, such as Carol Ann Duffy and Jane Weir, the writer of Poppies, the poem we're looking at today, who are using their poems to look at war from the outside. War poetry is important as it seemed a natural outlet for the intense emotions generated by the war, and its range challenges the concept that only those with direct experience of fighting, i.e. soldiers, were allowed to write about war. The Great War was a total war, and no one was left untouched by it. Suffering, mourning, patriotism, pity, and love were universally, if not equally, experienced. All the poets you have studied or will study try to show how pointless war was. As Edwin Starr puts it in his song War, on this slide there is a copy of the poem Poppies. It's also in your remote learning booklet, which it might be useful to have. So if you haven't got it already, pause the slide, go and find it, and then we've got a chance to work through it. There's also a link to a reading of this poem, and as we read it, as we analyse it, as we study it, have a look at how Jane Weir puts over her feelings about the futility of war. Right, Year 9, it's your turn to shine. It's your time to show that you have got the talent. It's time to show that you have the talent to answer the questions on Poppies. The answer, by the way, is yes, you have got the talent. The image on the right, as it says, is from your remote learning booklet, so you need to find that. Have a go at answering the questions in the boxes provided. If there isn't enough room, simply find yourself another piece of paper. Good luck and show us you have the talent. Now you've got some idea about the poet, it's time for you to start working independently. The idea now is to look down deep into the poem. And when I say deep, I mean deep down. I could have said analyse, but that wouldn't have been half as much fun. The next few slides have got the stanzas of the poem on and some questions to go with it. You can answer them in your book or just on paper. It's entirely up to you. Please remember, you have the talent. Now we've looked at the poem stanza by stanza, it's time to get an overall picture. Here are 3 questions about the poem as a whole. Have a go at them. Please try to remember and give examples from the poem in support of your answers. Not looking for particularly long answers, maybe spend around 10 minutes on this particular slide. You will need to pause it. Good luck. For our next activity, which is also taken from your remote learning booklet, is activity number 6, which looks at themes in the poem. Now, I could be mean and leave you to work out what themes mean, but I'm in a relatively good mood, so if you don't know, I'm about to tell you. A theme is simply the underlying message or big idea that's in a poem. In some cases, this can be more than one, and this is the case in Poppies. Have a look at the question in your booklet or on this slide. Tick the ones that you think are the big messages that are in Jane Weir's Poppies. You can check the answers at the back of your booklet. Now, I don't think you would do this, but no cheating and looking at the answers first. Please, pretty please. And now it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. The one, the only, the essay question. It's taken again from your remote learning book, so please make sure that you read it carefully. Okay, good luck. And so we come to the end of Mr. Robinson's guide to Poppies. Hope you've enjoyed it. Just finishing with 3 short points about the poem, just to help maybe get you to remember things. But that is it, I'm afraid. What do you mean you're cheering? Anyway, I will be back, with my view of another poem later on. So, as I come to the end, all that's left for me to do is to say